former Meta employees.
Both. Laid off?
I went from recruiting top engineers at Meta
to building something that actually feels like me.
No safety net, no title, just figuring it out.
And we're done pretending it was easy.
We're Stripped Naked, the podcast for creators, professionals, and entrepreneurs
who are done with the highlight reel.
Raw.
Real.
Rebuilding. Hello, hello. Welcome to our Stripped Naked podcast. This is episode 5. I am one of your hosts, June Colaroso. I'm a career strategist, content creator, millennial mom, first-gen Filipino American. And I'll pass it over to my co-host.
Hi, and I'm Marissa, a premium UGC creator strategist, a dog mom of 2 overall, and I'm based out of LA.
I'm also based out of the Bay Area too. So, Marissa, what's going on today?
We have our first guest.
So I'm super excited. He is also a fellow Meta mate that I've met actually after I transitioned out of Meta. But let me go ahead and put up some hype music to welcome our very first guest of our podcast. Here we go.
If you having girl problems, I feel bad for you, son. I got 99 problems, but it ain't one.
Hey!
All
right.
Guys, he got the dance memo.
Hello.
The working in the back used to say twerk.
Does say work. I need a tea.
Welcome, Vince, to our podcast. We're super excited. Vince is a certified coach in leadership and career and transitions. He's also worked in the talent development and acquisition space. He's also on the advisory board at Seattle Rep Theater and also a Filipino American. Vince, welcome to our podcast. How are you feeling today?
I'm doing well, ladies. Thank you so much for having me. What an honor to be your first guest on Stripped Naked. I'm super excited to be here and can't wait to dive in with you both.
Yeah, so we have a ton of questions for you. But before we get started, you know how we always like to start our corporate meetings with a little bit of an icebreaker. So we already know what your favorite hype song is. So we want to know what helps Vince get into that state of flow when you feel the most productive, right? Or say maybe you're feeling a little bit of like a creative block. What gets you back into that creative space, or where you feel like you're in your most optimal productive state, whether it's reading a book, working out? What is your go-to practice?
Ooh, I would say my go-to practice is actually reading a poem, like a short poem or a short essay. I like to do it before any major event. So spoiler alert, I did read one right before jumping on here. It just allows me to be in my body, stay grounded. And today I actually read a poem or an excerpt by Mark Nepo. This is from the Book of Awakening. And the poem that came up today very randomly, I think is very fitting for today. And it truly grounded me and allowed me to be in the moment. And it was all about birds and how they pick up random sticks to build a nest. And sometimes a stick that you pick up is too big for your nest. And so building a home sometimes takes tiny, small twigs to create a big structure and a big home. So I was like, how fitting for this discussion today.
Oh.
Good, Marissa's face.
I like that. I was like, there's so many things you can take from that. I love it.
I know. I love like those analogies. I love that. You have to share the recommendation of the book to me. We'll love to read that too. Well, great. Well, let's get into it. So I just read your very impressive LinkedIn headline. So you have one of those bios that make people stop and read it. You're a coach. You've worked at Meta. You've worked at Google. You're getting your master's. And then you're also a Filipino. And then you're part of the LGBTQ community. But out of all of those titles and experiences, who is Vince underneath all of that?
Ooh, I think what people should know underneath all of that is I'm an introvert at heart. I mean, nothing makes me happier than being at home with a book, curled up with my dog. I have an adorable corgi who sometimes doesn't like to cuddle with me against his will. But yeah, as you said, I mean, we do a lot of things in our busy schedules, and nothing makes me feel more happy and recharged than just being at home, curled up on the couch with a good Netflix show or a good book. We're always on. We're always on. We're always doing something. We're always wearing different hats and masks. I know we'll get into all of that. Speaking of being stripped naked, so just being at home and just being present and being able to recharge. That's who I am, I would say. A lot of people don't ever believe me when I say I'm an introvert, especially coming from, I'm a former professional cheerleader. So I'm used to, once the uniform comes on, once you're on stage, once the camera's on, you're on. You're putting on a mask, you're putting on a persona. But beneath all that, there's an introvert who likes to just be at home and loves a good joy of missing out. I don't ever get FOMO. But I love to just be at home and be present with my husband and with my dog and family. So that's what I would say is underneath all of that.
Oh, I love that.
Love
Love, love,
that.
love it. So with transitioning to that, because you hit that you're a homebody at heart, essentially. You've been 15 years in tech. You've done, all the big names. You're talking Meta, Google, leading DEI, recruiting, like managing global teams. From the outside in, it looks like a freaking dream, right? It's like the dream job. Oh my God, he has it all. But what is the reality for you personally?
I mean, in the spirit of this podcast, right, and stripping away all those titles, whether it's the LinkedIn headline or the resume, at the end of the day, I am just a human trying to help other humans being the best version of themselves, right? I loved being a manager because I was there for people in the best of times, and I was there for people in the worst of times, right? And to me, that is such a huge privilege, right? So I always lived by this MO of, I'm not chasing titles or roles. I'm going to chase the thing that I'm where I can help the most people, right? Where I can make the most impact that'll benefit people and their careers. And that's always served me well, right? And that's definitely my why in terms of this next transition of like, all right, what do I want to do for the next 20 and 25 years of my career that is truly going to help people in the best way that I can. And be, right? And I had to make a decision. Is that in the corporate space, or is that, as an entrepreneur, or is that creating my own private practice and business? There's many ways that you can help other human beings be the best version of themselves. But for me, I'm always looking at, okay, what's the thing that scares me the most? And let me run towards that.
I love that. And it shows a lot of like what you've learned, because essentially it's like you've seen a lot of people thrive, but then you've also seen a lot of people like not thrive with everything that you've provided to them.
Mhm.
So what did that teach you to actually, like, what it takes to actually show up in your new path of life, whether it be a corporate environment or the being an entrepreneur or anything like that? Like, what has that taught you to know how to show up in this space?
I think what it's taught me is that if you're not making yourself visible, you're invisible. Especially in this day and age of like, there's a lot of information moving at us, the average human takes about 3 seconds for every single reel or every single Instagram post before they swipe away and then they move on. So something that I also work with my clients on is that, in order to be either rewarded or to move on in your career, like you have to be visible. And if you're not, then you're invisible, and that will essentially impact your bottom line. I think no one knows that better than the both of you as creators, right? If you're not creating and if you're not being visible, then that not only impacts your bottom line in terms of financial, right, and deals and content and things like that, but it affects your impact, right? So I think that's something that June and I work a lot with our clients and the different workshops that we conduct for corporate clients, is that we teach our attendees and our audiences, like, look, if you're not visible, you're invisible, and that doesn't serve you. Serve you or your bottom line and your career. So yeah, when you ask that question about the difference between thriving and not thriving, I think for me, especially in that corporate context, you have to be visible. If you're thriving, then you are visible, but in your own way, right? Being visible doesn't mean having to be on stage or having the big fancy corporate VP titles and above, right? You can just be, you can still be visible as an IC, as whatever level you are. But there's different ways to do that. But yeah, when we talk about those corporate environments, like, invisibility does not serve you well. You have to be front and center in your own special way, and that looks different for everyone.
I love that. And speaking of like talking about like visibility and like stepping into your own, how do I say this? Like into your, I like to tell people that, and job seekers specifically, is you are the CEO of your experience. And it's not just your work experience, it's your life experience, all of your failures, all of the lessons that you've learned, right? And I feel like once you start sharing that a little bit more about how you overcame adversity, how you overcame layoffs, how you helped solve the problem for the team that you're on. Once you start showing up and sharing your ideas and your accomplishments internally in the workplace, as well as externally, whether it being on LinkedIn or just through networking, then those opportunities are going to come to you, right? And I feel like, me and Vince are going to be working together for the first time, like post Meta. Like we never crossed paths. We've always heard about each other, but we'd never worked together. And tomorrow we are facilitating a workshop on leadership and visibility for an API ERG group at a tech company. So speaking of that, me and you share some of our backgrounds being Filipino American. You also are part of the LGBTQ community. So I want to ask you this: when it comes to being coming from diverse backgrounds, were there parts of you and yourself where you felt like you had to shrink yourself in order to navigate in these big spaces that we were able to, thrive in?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good question. I think, being queer and being first generation Filipino American, unfortunately, due to, society and different cultural and social norms, like, we're taught to put some of that away, right? Especially in corporate spaces. But fortunately, I started my career in nonprofits, actually. And I was at a nonprofit law firm in San Francisco, and I was very lucky in that our executive director was queer herself, right? And so I was extremely lucky right out of college to serve and look up to someone who was out and proud in the workplace. And then, to their credit, right, both Google and Facebook were very accepting, of all of my multiple identities. So I was really grateful for that, right? Like, never in my wildest dreams did I think that I could bring my husband to a Christmas holiday party at Meta, and I did that multiple times. Um, but I think one of the things that I do really want to mention is that, it doesn't being your true authentic self, especially with all of your identities, especially in the workplace, doesn't come easy. It
Mhm.
never has, and it usually never goes away, right? Um, but honestly, through a lot of therapy and coaching and working on that internalized shame, I was able to work through some of that, self adversity.
Mhm.
When I first started at Facebook in Seattle, there was no LGBT group. No, there was no LGBT ERG in Seattle. There was one in our headquarters in Menlo Park, but there wasn't one in Seattle. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to create it. And fast forward for 5 years, I served as the president of Pride at Facebook. And through that position, we were able to march in the Seattle Pride Parade for the first time in its company's history. We had a huge float and we were able to sponsor the event. We also um, created a partnership with the Lambert House, which is an LGBT youth resource center here in Seattle. And Facebook Seattle was able to sponsor, and also we cooked meals for LGBT youth for once a month for years. So there are many things that I'm extremely proud of that we did in the community, but it took a while for me to be able to feel confident and comfortable, right? To be
Mhm.
out loud and proud in the workplace, to be able to do something like that. Um, I know that the spirit of this podcast is all about being raw and unfiltered. So one of the other things I want to share is that um, it took a while for me to have the courage to put something like that on my website or put something like that on my LinkedIn, right? Something so open and public, right? Especially, I would argue now in the world that we're living in, and the political climate that we're in, right?
Mhm.
It is very bold for someone to say, hey, I'm a proud member of the LGBT community in something in such a large public forum. But for me, I worked with a coach in the past who really just stopped me in my tracks and said, by not putting that on your LinkedIn, Vince, like, who is that serving? Because it's not serving you, and it's not serving anyone else. Wouldn't you want to be a beacon of hope? Wouldn't you want to inspire someone to do that same inner work, right? Wouldn't you want to be the change that someone else would like to see? And so once they put it in that perspective, that same day, that's when I updated my LinkedIn About Me section and I put it in there. So if I can serve as hope, if I can serve as inspiration, if I can serve as, a bright light for someone reading that who needs it, then it's worth it to me.
I wish I had that sound effect, Marissa. Beep, 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 beep. Beep, beep, beep. Next season. This is opening season. I love that. I love that. I have some questions for you, but before I ask my next question, I'm just gonna piggyback what you said. And I feel like you said that it took you a while to um, you know, embrace everything, all of your titles, all of the things that is a part of you, right? Because there's a lot of stigma out there. And I feel like what I heard from you, I feel like because you were in you saw like your mentor, you saw like you worked at Google. They created spaces where you can be your full authentic self. So why do you think it's so? And I feel like because you are embracing it, you're like, why not? Why am I not going to put that on my LinkedIn headline that I'm like proudly part of this community, that I'm queer, right? So why do you think
Mhm.
it's so important to like show up as yourself and not filter yourself to kind of meet society standards?
I mean, I, it's if you're not showing up, as your full authentic self, like I always ask, what is it costing you?
Mhm.
What's it costing you? What's it costing me? Um, yeah, I think it's just so important to show up. I mean, um, I don't know. It's like we're on this earth for such a short amount of time, and as you heard earlier, I'm made it my mission to help people be the best version of themselves, right? And that work starts with me. So if I'm not
Mhm.
willing to do it, if I'm not willing to do that hard work, then how can I expect
Yeah.
any client or patient or person or coachee or mentee to do that work as well if I'm not willing to do it, right?
Yeah.
So um I think it's just really important to walk the walk, as they say.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying that it's easy. It's
Mhm.
definitely not, right? If
Never
it was
easy.
easy, we'd be, so that's why I think it's important. It's important for me to show up how I want others to show up, and to make my little Vince, right, like my former self, that former child, to make him proud. You
Yeah. I love that. And I know he's proud of you, Vince.
know.
Speaking of like helping people, you built this really great career at Meta. You were there for over 12 years. And now speaking to you, we've had multiple conversations. You were about to get your master's. You're going towards your master's in social work. And you shared with me that you want to do therapy. So, what was that moment in your recruiting career when you realized that um, coaching is where you actually really want to go for your next step? Coaching and therapy.
Yeah, I mean, in recruiting, like we are in the business of changing someone's life, right? Like I will never take for granted when someone, picks up that phone or jumps on that VC and is like, I accept, right? June,
Mm-hmm.
you know very, very well what that feeling is like. Um, but coaching is and therapy is very parallel to that, right? Like you're still in the business of changing someone's life. It just looks different, right? And you're really partnering as a coach and as a therapist. You're partnering with someone who wants to change their life for the better, right? And so I moved from job, changes to now life changes and mental health changes, right? So um, I think that's for me like how I sort of made that transition. And even as in recruiting, like I was a recruiting manager. So in that role, I was not only able to support other recruiters and sourcers, but I was also partnered up with a lot of different, hiring managers and clients, right, and lots of cross-functional partners. And it was funny, whenever I had a hiring manager, let's say we would meet to talk about their hiring needs, they would be like, "Oh my gosh, Vince, like I need to hire this person and hire all these people, but I'm also feeling like super overwhelmed, and my family's driving me up the wall." Like just so naturally, people would start pouring out their either life story or their current experience, and I found myself asking them like, okay, let's not talk about your hiring needs for a second. Tell me more about that. Like tell me more about why you're feeling overwhelmed, right? So like that curiosity kept getting louder and louder and louder. So it was like, all right, maybe I'm meant to do more than recruiting. I'm meant to like, what's pulling me more, right? I'm like, I'm sitting here like, ooh, don't tell me about your hiring needs. Tell me about your trauma. That's
Yeah.
what interests me more, So, and then I just had subtle signs. I had um, a lot of my directs would tell me like, Vince, I wish you were my therapist instead of my manager, And I also had a former manager, shout out Ina, if you ever watch this, but she was a great manager. She told me, she said, Vince, like, you are a great recruiting manager, but I don't know what you're doing here. You need to go be a therapist. Like, that is your gift. So, I mean, one of the best things that I've ever been told as a manager from my own manager was like, you're great at what you do, but this isn't where you belong. And it took a lot of courage for her to say that to me.
So I love everything you've said, essentially. Like, it actually leads into the next question that I had for you about you founding Limitless Arc, and on that belief, like, your arc isn't finished. I'm assuming that all of these life experiences is what cracked that open. Can you go a little bit deeper into what, because obviously your manager told you can do it, your direct reports told you as well, but what was the final, like, nail in the coffin? You're like, okay, you know what? This is where I need to go and start this new career path for myself.
Yeah, I would say the arc that I've always been inspired by is actually my sister's.
Okay.
My sister, her path has always been up and down, unconventional. A few examples: she, didn't graduate undergrad until about 27, got her master's at 35, and is now 56 and getting her PhD. Also in the midst of having 4 kids, 2 marriages. I mean, I could go on and on and on. And before I applied to grad school, I called her and I said, hey, this is what I'm thinking of doing. What do you think? And she was like, I don't know what you're calling me for. Like, you're wasting time. Like, do it. Do it. She's like, don't wait as long as I did to get my master's. Don't wait as long as I did to get my PhD. Like, if you don't go after this, you will regret it. She's like, take it from me. You will regret it. Right? So that's where that arc sort of comes in. Fun fact too, my favorite Disney movie is, Peter Pan. So you can actually see this is Peter Pan's hat behind me. And there's a saying in that movie is like, never grow up, the whole, like, with the Lost Boys and things like that. And that is sort of something that I try to live by. It's like, no, you're never done growing up. There is no finish line, and your arc is limitless. It's like, if I'm not growing, I'm not living.
I love it.
So that's where that sort of comes from, right? It's like, look, there is no finish line. That arc keeps going, and it only stops when you leave this earth, and that's part of your journey.
Yeah, it only stops when you stop learning, right? And trying things new. And I feel like the next question I have for you, I feel like is so important, just because so many people are at their crossroads right now with all these layoffs happening in the tech space. People are thinking like for me, when I got laid off from Meta, I was like, oh my gosh, is my tech career over? What's next for me, right? But I knew that I didn't want to get back into recruiting. Like, I'm going to always be forever grateful for my experiences at Meta and all the companies I've worked at. But I feel like all of those experience has prepped me for what's next, right? I knew that there was something that needed to be changed, right, for me in my career. So for people that know there needs to be a change for themselves, whether they're being work or in their business, but they're not sure what to change, what is the most common thing that you see holding people back?
I mean, 2 things, and I'm guilty of both, right? Number 1 is imposter syndrome. And number 2 is self-doubt, right? I mean, I even had some of that when you invited me to come on this podcast. I was like, who, me? For what? For what? I mean, you cut me on this podcast with like 2 iconic creators and strategists.
Stop? You're iconic.
I mean,
interrupt. You were
Like,
when you reached out to me on LinkedIn. This is Vince from Meta. Wants to talk to little old me. He didn't even accept my LinkedIn request when I started working at Meta.
for the record, I don't remember getting that request, but no, definitely like imposter syndrome. And what I try to tell clients is like, look, imposter syndrome is not a it's not a symptom. It's actually it's a sign. It's imposter syndrome is something not to avoid, but to actually get good at, right? Like when I feel imposter syndrome, I know I'm actually in the right place.
Yeah.
Like if I'm not feeling imposter syndrome, then I'm like, I'm not growing. I'm too comfortable. And then self-doubt, it's like I have it all the time. Like I think, coaches can relate to this. Like sometimes we have a chemistry call, or we go to new outreach, like, hey Vince, I'm interested in coaching. And then you look up their LinkedIn and you look at their resume and they're like, why do they want me as their coach? Like, like there's always that self-doubt.
Yeah.
But I try to believe, like, when it's in the way, it actually is the way. That is the way. So that's what I try to live by. So I do think that imposter syndrome and self-doubt is not easy to get over. It's a skill to get over both of those. But I challenge anyone and I invite anyone, if you're feeling either of those things, that means it's actually, you're in the right place. So if it's in the way, it is the way.
I love that.
I love it. By the way, I have to say, and I said it to you backstage, was like when I was doing research on you, I was like giggling. I was like, oh my God, I get to talk to him. He's awesome. Like, just like what you have, I was just like giggling in the background, telling June to do it. And I was like, so just letting you know, that was me, who I didn't connect with, you didn't know anything, was like, oh my God, this man has like a great track record. I can't wait to have this conversation with you. So, imposter syndrome or not. And shout out real quick to Ian. He actually just put a great comment. He's like that he loves the content information, and he loves the value that we are all bringing together.
Thank you, Ian.
We worked together way back when at Best Buy in New York. That's a whole other different story.
Ooh.
So then leading into our next question here is like, so you're getting a master's in social work. You're adding therapy into coaching, which I think that's brilliant, because when you are coaching, in my coaching job, there's a lot of mindset work that has to go into it. And it's probably the toughest part of any program you go into, is like making sure you're in the right mindset. So this right here, I was just like, yes, I love that you're doing that. But what I really want to know is, what is it that coaching can't reach that you're going to after next overall?
Yeah, I think it's such a privilege to be able to sit with someone and sit with their grief and sit with their trauma. I think, when you look at the coaching code of ethics, like we're really not supposed to dive into the past, like that deep past, like that history and those layers that we normally don't even speak out loud to even ourselves. And coaching is really all about the present and partnering with someone to achieve their aspired future, right? We talk about present and we talk about moving forward. And to me, therapy is all about the present, but also the past, right? How does that past influence how you show up now? How does that trauma influence, or those past experiences influence the way you show up in life, in the boardroom, in your business, how you just show up, period? So I decided to go into social work, and I decided to pursue psychotherapy because I want to be able to sit with someone for the entire spectrum. Again, that theme of arc comes back, right? It's like, yep, I want to sit with you in your trauma and your grief and your sadness and your joy, But then I also want to sit with you as we move forward and achieve that aspired future, right? That's where I think the synergy of both therapy and coaching can come in. And I need to go back to school to be able to study those methods, right? Those methods of like, how do we get people from the depths over here and get them to move forward, right? It's like I can coach you from here to here, but I need the tools to get you to even where you're coachable, right? So, yeah, great question.
I love that answer. Because it's like a lot of things that you're saying to me. It's like, it validates some of the approaches that I have. So somebody who is actually studying and going into it, I was like, maybe I should be getting a master's.
That's what I'm thinking too.
But one thing about your career is that you've reinvented yourself multiple times. To help others you're helping others like do the same. What do you say? Wait, wow, my train of thought disappeared. What's the thing that most people get wrong when they are trying to reinvent themselves?
I
know.
I think what most people get wrong is that, like, you believe that everything will be fine once the reinvention is complete. We believe that things will be easier. I'm gonna be happy, and we're gonna be fine, right? But no, especially if someone is like me, where like you're constantly evolving, you're constantly looking at like what's next. Just because you achieve one goal doesn't necessarily, or that reinvention is complete per se, it doesn't mean that, you're necessarily happy or you're, I think for me, like once I walk across that stage after graduation, I already know myself well enough to know that I'm going to be like, okay, what's next? What's the next certificate? What's the next step? Because I love learning, right? But you have to, choosing a new path and continuously reinventing yourself, like it's hard. It's hard work. I'm not gonna say that it's easy. And sometimes I do ask myself, like, Vince, like, when are you gonna be happy? When is enough gonna be enough? But it's hard for me to stay stagnant, but it's also hard for me to move forward. Grad school is going to be incredibly hard. My therapy internship is going to be incredibly difficult. But for me, it's like, okay, well, choose your hard. Which hard is it going to be? Is it going to be staying stagnant and not growing? Or is it going to be pursuing the next thing? Which hard do you want to pursue? What do you choose? So that's what I think, most people get wrong. But all of it's hard. Living in this world is hard. But, which way are you going to pick?
I have a really quick follow-up to that, is because you're always moving to the next thing and to the next thing. Do you take time to actually celebrate everything you've accomplished?
That's a good question.
That's a great question. I do. Like I said, I'm
right.
that I'm not that introvert, right? I just turned 40, just got back from 10 days in Cancun with 30 friends and family. And, we took that time to celebrate life. But yeah, it's a good question, Marissa. I think, when you're someone like me that's continuously sort of evolving, like it's hard to hit pause. And, my therapist likes to remind me to take that moment and breathe in and celebrate and take it all in, so I love that Kiana just mentioned the destination happiness. Right. But sometimes it takes work to just take in the journey.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Okay, we have a couple questions. I have to go pick up my son after. So Marissa knows it's minimum Wednesdays. So but all of these Thanks so much to Marissa. Shout out to Marissa. She came up with all these questions, and I love all of them.
Mhm.
And you talked about like how we're always kind of thinking about the next thing. I feel like all of us three, we thrive when we're uncomfortable, right?
Mhm.
And your tagline is "Comfort is a slow death." That's a very bold statement. So what do you say to someone who hears that and thinks, I'm not ready to be uncomfortable. I'm not ready to try something new. I'm not ready to put myself out there. What would you tell? What would you tell like Vince 10 years ago?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, it's okay not to be ready. The two, like, they can both coexist. Not being ready, but also longing to be ready. They can both exist at the same time. I myself wasn't ready for years. I wasn't. And in part, Meta made that decision for me. Meta made that decision for all of us on this call, I believe, right? um, but I would also challenge someone who's in that place to just continue to ask yourself, well, what's it costing me by not being ready? What is it costing me by not being ready? And what is one small thing that I can do today, this week, this month, to inch me even closer to being ready? But if you're not ready, that's okay. And I think it's a great question, June. And I want to be super clear. Like, you don't have to be ready all the time. I wasn't ready for years. But I would challenge you. What is it costing you by staying stagnant? And what's one thing you can do just to move forward? Is it a LinkedIn post, putting something out there? Is it a quick little 15-second reel that I can put myself out there? Is it a book that I can read? Is it, it doesn't have to be certificate. It doesn't have to be a grad degree. It could be, I just started Anthrop Academy. They give out free courses on AI and how to use it effectively and things like that. Those are free, right? Those are quick little 15-minute classes. I mean, whatever it is, like, what's one small step that you can do to today that you can inch just a little bit closer to being ready? But if you're not, that's okay.
Yeah, I love that. Like, start when you're not ready. And then also I think Marissa knows this, that I think it's kind of me unlearning the corporate way. You have to kind of come to an agreement with yourself that not everything's going to be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Marissa?
Progress over perfection.
Progress over perfection. Marissa, take us away.
Before I do take us away, like I preach that, and I preach it to myself too, because sometimes I'm like, oh my god, I can't post it, and then I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm still showing up. Like, I'm building in real time, and I'm not always going to be perfect. So I love that you said all of that. Now, my favorite, because every single time people hear about our name, they're like, what are you women talking about? What does being stripped naked mean to you? What does it look like when you show up fully, no armor, and in your own right, like now? Like, what is it that stripped naked mean to you? And what did you think when June told you about the name?
Well, I mean, first of all, Stripped is the best Christina Aguilera album out there, and I will fight anyone who thinks differently. And anyone who's listened to that album a million times just like me knows that, like, the spirit of taking away the layers that we wear every single day, whether that's your clothing, your masks, right? Like, we always talk about, like, there's a work persona that we have, there's a coach persona, there's all these different personas and masks and roles and identities that we wear every single day. But being stripped naked for me is like, I think about it as dancing like no one's watching. What is it like when you're in your room, you're in the shower, whatever, no one else is watching, and you're dancing, you're listening to your favorite tune. Who is that person in that moment, right? That's the person that's fully stripped naked, right? And then for me, in terms of your question of, like, what does it mean to be stripped naked and how is that impacting how you show up right now? I think for me, I'm in such a big space of transition, right? I'm like, I am finding the courage to speak out loud of like, hey, I'm starting over, right? Like I'm going to grad school, I'm becoming a therapist, I'm doing all these things, I'm an intern again, you know? Like, but for me, I'm trying to believe that when you speak things into existence, the universe conspires to give you what you want.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm doing things like this. That's why I'm trying to meet as many people as I can who are in the therapy and coaching space, because I'm saying out loud what I want, what my goals are, and I am hoping that the universe comes through and conspires to give me that thing. Right? Like I'm completely like I'm naked right now. I've released like a lot of the masks and titles and clothing and things that I've been for many, many years. And I'm becoming this new version of myself. I'm starting over. I'm going into this new career. And I'm befriending the fear and I'm betting on myself. So I think that takes a lot of courage to say out loud. But I'm doing that so that, I believe in manifestation and all those other good things. So good question.
Well, Vince, it was a pleasure speaking to you. And honestly, I know I haven't spoken to June about this yet, but what I would love to do is I would love to see have you back as a guest and see where have you progressed throughout.
Oh, yes.
Because it's like you're just starting right now with your new pivot. So it's like I would love to see you when you're like in the middle a little bit, maybe where you're like graduated and be like, hey, like this is how I've gone, because I want people to see your story, because to me it's like I just knew about you a few weeks ago and it's like you're such an inspiration and people will follow that overall. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vince. And then on that note, Vince, if you weren't able to tune in, for everyone that's catching the replay, Vince's episode is going to go live. Oh my God, this is messy in the middle. My son was calling me. His podcast is going to go live officially on Friday on Spotify. I dropped the link on the comments, so please subscribe. Thank you, Vince, and we'll see you all next week.
Yes, and
thank y'all for having me.
You're welcome. And next week I'm gonna do a deep dive on June.
Oh my goodness.
Into that.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. Connect with Vince. His LinkedIn is in the comments, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye now.
Bye.